Hey everybody, and welcome to the Perfect Blend. I am going to record tonight's tasting so you can access it in via University, probably the end of the week, first part of next week. I'm Mari Coyle, Director of Wine here at One Hope. If you're just joining for the first time, want to welcome you and say happy spring to everybody. Today I am presenting some wines that are super exciting. They're kind of winemaker wines, which are our red blends, our California red blend and our Napa Valley red blend, alongside our popcorn pairing, which we'll talk about in just a couple minutes too. I'd love to hear from you guys in the chat box. I'm going to go ahead and open the chat box. And if you have any questions, just pop into the chat box. And when I have a second, I will try and answer all your questions. So let me pop that open here. Couple more people joining. Just want to welcome you guys. So for those of you just joining, welcome to the Perfect Blend. I am Mari, and happy spring. That goes together today. So let's get this party started. I see a lot of you. Hey everybody, I see you. Hi Lynn. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about our red blends, and we get a lot of great questions about our red blends. What's made in the red blend? Why is it so yummy? And I just learned that our California red blend actually is skyrocketed to the top of the charts. It's one of our top wines right now. It's so popular, gaining in popularity. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason that red blends are so popular. And, you know, really it's kind of interesting when you think about red blends and evolution, because way back in the day when, you know, California wine industry was first starting, almost all of the wines that we were seeing out in the market and were coming out were blends. And then what a lot of people don't realize is that in the 80s, we started trying to create sort of a niche market for our wines and differentiate them from what we called Hardy Burgundy and Chablis and these basically red blends. And we went through an era in the 80s where we really brought out this marketing for the fighting varietals. And that's what this sort of campaign ended up being called, where we were fighting for the varietal name. We wanted that purity, that moment of truth. We wanted Cabernet Sauvignon, and we wanted Merlot. We wanted Pinot Noir. We want to introduce these varietals. And it worked, right? It worked on all of us, because we're all like, wait, I like Cab. No, I like Zin. No, I like Pinot Noir. And we can relate to these varietals now. But in that movement, the blend was sort of lost. People didn't have a place to put a blend. Wineries and winemakers were just not really producing the same volume of blends, because they were literally fighting for this shelf space of fighting varietals and trying to get their Cabernet out there, their Merlot out there, and winning in that game. So that left this real category that was a little bit squashed. And of course there were some winemakers still making blends, but the volume and the popularity really dropped in the 80s and 90s. And it just kind of started coming back. Everybody has caught on to this concept that, you know, red blends really work. Red blends are delicious. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that tonight. So why I kind of call red blends winemaker blends is because it's really an opportunity to get creative. We blend for several different reasons. And here in this glass, I like this slide a lot because it kind of shows you, like, why are we blending? Well, we're blending for three reasons. One is to add complexity, because we know that if there's inherent characteristics in one varietal and there's inherent characteristics in another varietal, blending the two together adds more, right? 1 + 1 is 2. 2 + 1 is 3. So we build on these flavors and these characteristics when we blend. It adds complexity and nuances. We create wine style. With a blend, we can kind of choose the direction that we want to go in. Do we want a lot of red fruit? Do we want a lot of dark fruit? Do we want it to be broad and sort of jammy, like expressive of Zinfandel characteristics, pull in a little bit of structure from Cabernet? What do we want this to be? And there's nobody saying that's right and that's wrong. It's just a wide open, perfect palette to add creativity. So you can create wine style in a blend. And then lastly, we blend to manage our tannin structure, whether that's building the wine up to have more tannins, more structure, more kind of bold mouthfeel like we like to talk about, or whether it's sort of minimizing some of those big tannins and fleshing out the wine and making it more approachable, maybe more juicy, more rich, more opulent, darker, lighter. We can do all those things with blends. So it's just a really, really great thing that winemakers get to do, and our customers are loving it because they can taste this wine that has all these complexities, all these delicious nuances, is full-bodied and delicious to enjoy with food, and really for almost any occasion. So blending is an amazing art, and I find these two wines really fun to taste. So we're gonna have a lot of fun tonight. So wanted to talk a little bit about each variety when we're talking about some of the varieties that we use for our blends. Now, I will reiterate this several times because I know everybody likes to get the facts, and I see some pencils and paper out. So our California red blend is primarily Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, and Zinfandel. Now, it can have some Syrah from vintage to vintage. It changes, but it is a proprietary blend of those three grapes primarily. So let's start off talking about those grapes and what they contribute to the blend. We start off with Cabernet, which is sort of the king of red grapes worldwide, certainly here in the United States. Very popular wine and very popular blending base because it's so strong. It has a very strong backbone, a lot of great tannins. It can range from where it's grown. It can range with red fruit, meaning like raspberry, and cherry, to black fruit, meaning blackberry, and dark black fruits, maybe even dried black fruits, black plums, and blueberry notes. Okay, so you also get blue notes in Cabernet where you actually get that purity of blueberry. Really incredible. And then you have very dark color and you have structured tannins. That's what Cabernet brings. And sometimes it's a little too fierce. Sometimes you want to actually blend and add some more richness to the wine and add something a little bit maybe more juicy. When we talk about juicy, and I get a lot of questions, well, what do you mean by juicy? Juicy, I really mean like fruit. If you were to, bite into a strawberry, bite into a fresh piece of fruit, you taste that juice, and that's kind of what juicy is. It's that sweetness without being sweet. It's a sweetness and a richness that only comes from fruit. And it's kind of that juicy fruit that fills out the mid-palate just like it would if you were to bite into a fresh piece of fruit. So when we're looking at blenders for Cabernet and we say, well, we want this wine to be complex, we want some other notes to it, we look at Zinfandel and we think, wow, okay, there's red and there's also purple fruit notes. Now we have plum in here. So that's an added complexity, an added layer, an added range. If you think of like a rainbow of the fruits and different colors that your fruits are in your refrigerator or your farmer's market. Now we're adding purple fruit notes. And the Zinfandel has a moderate structure. Depending on where it's grown, of course, you can find a big Zin, and you can also find, pretty moderate tannins, even light tannin Zinfandel that can add to that richness, that purple fruit expression, add to maybe like a red raspberry, sometimes even a black raspberry if it's very ripe Zinfandel. And a sweetness, either in residual sugar and actual sweetness, adding just a touch of sweetness to a blend, or just in perceived fruit. Because sometimes our perception of fruit is that something is sweet. And that's because almost every time you eat a piece of fruit, with the exception of, I think, isn't tomato actually a fruit? You know, not too sweet. Sometimes we say they are, though. They can be. But with the exception of sort of the tomato, almost every piece of fruit that you bite into is sweet. And so when we think of fruit, sometimes our mind thinks sweet, and that's okay because that's our experience. That's what we're used to. And then we'll look at Merlot, which is widely planted, grows very well in California. And Merlot has red and blue fruit notes and a really soft texture. It has sort of that velvet, that satin. It's really can be soft around the edges while it still has some mid-palate and some backbone to keep the blend together. And so Merlot adds another layer of complexity in that fruit rainbow spectrum and that soft texture. So you think about all those three things together and you go, wow, that sounds really good. Can I try that? Well, yes, you can. We're going to do that. Now, I also want to point out a couple other varieties that we use more specifically right now in our Napa Valley red wine blend. But Petite Syrah, which is blue and black fruit notes with very rich and dense structure and texture, and very dark color. So Petite Syrah adds some floral notes as well in there, but also layers on that black fruit and that blue fruit, a lot of piercing sort of blueberry in there. So that is an excellent wine. If you guys have tried our Napa Valley Petite Syrah, you know what that Petite Syrah is adding to a blend. A lot of firm structure, weight, richness to the blend. Petite Verdot is incredibly structured, and it also adds some floral notes. So there's high notes, but it's not a light wine. It's not really particularly a floral wine, but it is so intense that you get very structured tannins, and you also have these sort of floral high notes. It also adds to the darkness and density of the wine and is a great blender in a small quantity. You know, sometimes we only use 1 to 2% Petite Verdot, and it does a lot for the blend. And Syrah can oftentimes be found in blends. Syrah adds a lot of blue fruit notes, dark color, and very textured tannins. So it can really add depth to the mouthfeel, maybe even range, basically just add to that sort of bold, rich expression that people love when they love red blends. So there's just a couple of great varietals that we're going to be talking about tonight as we discover our red blends. So I'm going to talk briefly about red winemaking, and then we're going to go ahead and open these wines up. But with red winemaking, we know that the red grapes are crushed and destemmed, and then we ferment the juice. So it goes from juice to alcohol and juice to wine, fermented on its skins. And that allows for tannins, because tannins come from skins and seeds, and color. Color comes from the skins. So that allows this sort of richness and complexity that each variety has to come to life in the wine. And that wine is then aged in oak to add complexity and soften the tannins. We have different aging on the two blends that we're going to talk about today. And both of them, when they're bottled, result in wines with red color, of course, because the juice itself is actually not red. The color comes from the skins. So because of this winemaking technique, you actually get beautiful red, intense wines with soft tannins. And these tannins can really range to be very big to very soft. But in our wines, we like the tannins to typically be approachable. And as we move up into the iconic series, we'll see some bigger wines, some more intense tannins that might really want some decanting and aging. So we'll talk a little bit about that tonight too. So I want to go ahead, and usually I do a ton of talking and then we're rushing through the wines. And so I wanted to go ahead and open these up. So first of all, with our California Red Blend, I have the 2015 here. And I just wanted to go through if anybody's new on a technique here for opening your wines with a cork. So you're going to use your corkscrew, and you've got a blade on the corkscrew. And on this blade is actually used for not being confiscated in airports, although all my One Hope corkscrews have recently been confiscated in Philly and in Denver. So I'm using a less superior corkscrew tonight. But this blade is actually used for the foil. It cuts the foil. So that's what we're going to do. And if you find on your bottle of wine sort of the lower edge rim here on the glass where the foil is, I like to just put my knife right up in there under that ledge, under that little lip, and then I go ahead and cut around using that edge to give me some kind of grip so that when I peel off my foil, I've got a nice clean look. That's great for tastings. It's a good tip because sometimes, you know, your foils get a little tattered up and look a little crazy, and this just keeps a nice, neat foil. You can, of course, always take your foil off completely. That's fine too. The foil, it really doesn't have a large function. It's more of a tradition. Your cork would stay in the bottle with or without a foil. So you can always take it off. And then here's what I like to show people, because a lot of times our corkscrew doesn't go in the right way. It's sideways and the cork comes out and it's broken in half. All kinds of crazy issues that we can have from trying to open a bottle of wine, right? And we just want to get to that yummy combination of 3 varieties that are in here. So you want to take a look at the point here on your corkscrew. Make sure that you have that right there in the middle of the cork. And then you're going to go ahead and you can straighten it up and wind it into your cork. And then you can use this little fulcrum. Mine has 2. I think yours do too. And voila, there you go. You've got your wine bottle open. So I know we have lots of new people. Welcome everybody who's new. And sometimes you just need a couple of tips on getting this bottle open, right? So let's see here. Tonight I am using a stem glass, which I know is not that common for me. I use stemless a lot because I like it and it's easy. I use all kinds of glassware. I do like to talk about the type of glassware that you might think about using and also let you know that there's no right or wrong. I've got water in this little cup right here, but this would be fine. You can taste out of anything. Some glasses are better than others, and in the perfect glass, in the science of how a wine glass works, the wine actually is delivered to your palate in a very specific way in which you're meant to enjoy that type of wine best. So there is actually a science behind wine glasses, which I hope someday we will all go over together. It's really pretty fascinating. But for many of us, day to day, we're trying our wines, we're tasting them with friends. I just want you guys to know any glass is fine. This is a glass that I really like. It's Luigi Bormioli. I'm probably totally butchering his beautiful name. But I love this glass. What I do look for if I'm going to invest or buy in some kind of like high-end glassware, meaning I didn't buy it at IKEA, I actually like to make sure that I don't have a rim on the top. So some glassware, in fact, if you've got one from like a fundraiser or, you know, somewhere, sometimes you see them in like clubhouses. You can see them at a lot of restaurants, typically like rental glasses, anything like that is going to have like a rim, like a thicker rim around the top. And for me personally, I don't care for that. I like to have a really clean edge. So that's something that I do look for if I'm looking to invest in some kind of nice glassware. Like I said, the science behind it all is really that the wine goes directly to your palate and isn't sort of caught up on that little bump. I know these are technical things, but I want to share with you. That's kind of what I look for. And then beyond that, I look for something that is durable, because I've got kids running around, I've got a dog running around, I've got my husband that's throwing stuff in the dishwasher, trying to clean up all the time. God love him. And so I want something that's durable. And these actually have this reinforced, like, crazy technology in the stem, where I've dropped a case of them out of the back of my car and I didn't break any. So works for me. And I think it's just really pretty how it has this teardrop shape at the bottom. And it's got a nice big bowl so I can swirl, because you guys know I love doing my swirling. So, so those are just a couple things if you are looking to buy some nicer glassware that I would take a look for. Just kind of make sure that is, you know, some whatever fits you, suits your lifestyle and your needs. But I do like that edge being seamless. And I did find these actually at TJ Maxx one time after I bought them at Napa Style. Then I later found some from TJ Maxx. So I'm just saying, you can find them anywhere. So, so when we're tasting the wine, it's nice if we do have a little bit of, you know, room in the glass. So I like to fill mine about a third full, not halfway and not all the way, so that I can actually swirl, because we know that swirling is where it's at, right? So I like that. I have been using a stemless glass for so long that sometimes I'm like, whoa, I'm off balance. I got this big glass of wine. So I like to swirl and have enough room to swirl my glass, because swirling actually allows all the volatile and aromas to come to the surface. And then you can actually smell the wine, which is the most important part of the wine tasting experience, because it's the strongest and most intense sense that you're using is your sense of smell. So when you smell, you've got to really get your nose in there and smell, right? So you also want to have enough room in your glass that you can get your nose in there and smell. This is super pretty. Every time, you know, it's fun, because every time you open a wine, you might notice something a little bit different that you didn't notice before. Right now I'm getting like that really intense fresh raspberry, like fresh raspberry from the vine. If you were actually to get a raspberry bush and pick the raspberry, it's different than the ones bought in the store, right? And hey, Chris, I see you in the chat box, and I will definitely put the brand of the glasses in there and spell it correctly. It's Luigi Bormioli. I don't know. I'm going to put it in there for you guys so you know. So I just get a lot of really pretty dark fruit, like I'm just sniffing a basket full of fresh berries. Really fresh, like almost brambly berries, so kind of that blackberry note. Again, that's probably coming from the Cabernet and a little bit of the Zinfandel. And a little bit of spice. I'm getting some spice, maybe a tiny bit of cedar, just a touch of that oak profile, and this sort of confectionery, almost chocolate cocoa, like a cocoa powder, not a sweet milk chocolate, but kind of a chocolate character. One thing I actually love about our wines is not only can you see the impact on the front label, but I love that you can actually check out the back label and look for tasting notes, the tasting profile. So we've got some spices on here, clove, allspice, a little graham cracker, which is kind of what I'm saying is that cedar note right now. It's coming out to me. It's from the oak profile, from the barrel toasting. And then we've got bittersweet chocolate. But there's a whole lot of fruit in this wine too, right? I mean, I'm just getting a lot of range of blueberry, blackberry, a little more blackberry, and red berry. Doug's got a question. Is a red blend generally a sweet wine? Is there one varietal sweeter than the other in the One Hope blend, Petit Syrah, Merlot, or Cab? Typically, well, red blends can really range, first of all, to be sweet. I would say typically they're probably off dry, and a lot of times that's because of the Zinfandel. Zinfandel is that one variety that gets super ripe, and when it gets really ripe, It has higher alcohol and tends to typically have a slightly smaller, a slightly small amount of residual sugar. So sometimes you can get sweetness from the Zinfandel, and that's what that would be. So if you guys have your popcorn, you've got your maple, you've got your bacon, so good with the red blend, right? So in this pairing in particular, we're actually kind of complementing the contrasting flavors of the earthiness of the bacon with the fruit in the wine and kind of playing that up so we have more fruit in the wine. And then with the maple syrup, we kind of have this sweetness that will actually bring out more of the structure of the wine. And you can decide as we taste together if that's actually happening for you. So when you do your pairing, you want to go ahead and smell the wine and then sip the wine. This tends to be our favorite part. Now, when you're sipping the wine, did you know that you're actually still smelling the wine? So the process of tasting a wine is actually still using your olfactory system, the sense of smell, because that continues as you taste the wine. But now you're also incorporating the sense of touch and the texture of the wine and your sense of taste, which is actually the sweetness, the bitterness, and the acidity. Those are the things that you can actually taste. So there's really three things going on, and that's why wine tasting gets complicated. And if you're tasting this wine right now and going, I don't get anything that she's saying, I don't get the blackberry, the blueberry, I haven't picked a wild raspberry, that's okay. You still belong here in One Hope, and you're enjoying the wine. That's what's important. But as you learn more about the wines and why red blends play well together and why they're so easy to drink and fun and just so complex, it's fun to know these little details too, right? So I like to go ahead and taste my wine and then taste the food. Take a bite of your popcorn. Sometimes I cheat and I buy the kettle corn. I didn't do that today, but I did kind of cheat because I bought the Trader Joe's popcorn that already has olive oil and salt, sea salt. So all I had to do was add the maple syrup and the bacon bits. And the maple syrup kind of allows the bacon bits to sort of stick on there. Anybody else notice that? So after you take a bite, then go ahead and take a sip of your wine again. And then you just want to see what changed. What does the wine taste like now? Wow. For me, after I go from that sort of earthy pairing, which maple kind of is earthy too, even though it's sweet, and I go back to the wine, I really get like boysenberry, like a whole new berry that I haven't even been talking about. And that's super fun. How about you guys? Anybody in the chat box experience a good pairing? Maybe. I'm looking through at all your great faces. I love seeing you guys on here. Hi. I see some nodding, some fun, some parties. So that's kind of how you can tell if you have a good pairing is, does the wine taste better with the food? And that's what a great pairing is. It brings something out in the wine that you didn't notice before. Like for me, I didn't notice the boysenberry before. And now all of a sudden I did. Brittany has white cheddar and it's still good. See, there's that too. Okay. So I wanted to go over here and then we'll open our Napa Valley and talk about some of these flavor descriptors, some of these characteristics that we're actually picking up in the wine. And this is something that we talk about that, you know, it takes time. It really takes time to like hone in on what it is exactly that you're smelling and tasting. And little bit by little bit, we do it and we get more familiar with our wines and we have more fun talking about them and enjoy them more. Somebody, let's see. Katie says it's the best popcorn she's ever had, and she also likes the wine. Well, that's good. That's good. I know, it's pretty fun. We're getting so creative with these popcorn pairings, and we just did a whole bunch more to finish off the rest of the year. And I just keep seeing like Giada. I think I said this last week on Q&A. Giada now has her own popcorn line. Okay, so popcorn is like a thing. It's happening. And I just noticed like the popcorn aisle, the popcorn snacks, I'm just seeing them everywhere now. It's awesome. So I'm opening up a red blend now and from Napa Valley. And we talk a lot about the different AVAs, the American viticulture areas. And we have the California AVA, where we have North Coast, we have Napa Valley, we have Central Coast, we have the interior. We have so many different small wine sub-AVAs or sub-regions. But this is from Napa Valley, which is a very small region, world-class wine region where our One Hope Winery is going in. And this is the 2015 Napa Valley Red Blend. And if you wanted to, you could decant this wine. I put my little decanter out here to remind me to talk about that a little bit. Both of these wines, the red blends, are going to be best served, I would say around 60, 62 degrees would be ideal. That's not always easy for us to do, especially if we don't have a cellar. But you can also put a chill on the California red blend in summer if you live somewhere hot. I really recommend that. It's great if it's slightly chilled. Better than being warm. On the warmer side of things, I would say, you know, chill it down and then let it sit out for a minute or something. And if you had the Napa Valley red blend, you know, kind of best in that 62 degree range too, I think. Our California red blend, once you open it, can be best enjoyed within like 2 or 3 or 4 days, maybe 4 at the most. If you're going to show it to people or take it to a tasting, I really recommend just in a couple days enjoying it. Although our reds always can hold up a little longer open than the whites. And then with our Napa Valley Reserve and Iconic wines, you know, you could leave those open for like 5 days. You could leave them open from like 5 to 7 days. And so I recommend that. You can leave this open a little longer. I see some activity in the chat box, and let's see, Megan is sharing a tip. What helps her, and she's a som, so listen up, everybody. What helps her is that when she goes to the grocery store, she smells all the fruit, the herbs, and everything, which is awesome. It's such a great idea. You can do that at the farmer's market. You can really just kind of get in touch with what these things smell like so that you develop that reference point, right? And then when you go ahead and smell something, it comes to your mind. Because if you've never smelled any of these things, it would be difficult to recognize them in wine, right? So great tip from Megan. I really like that. It's spring. So head out to your farmer's market and get smelling. Try some new things. Try some of the things on the back labels. When you take a look at the back label, see if maybe you can find a few of those things. And, you know, right here we've got, you know, 7 great descriptors that can often be found in your own home. You can open your spice drawer and see if you've got allspice, clove, chocolate, graham cracker, cinnamon, plums, of course, prunes would be also good for some wines, the dried form of plum, and then your black cherries. So yeah, springtime. So the Napa Valley Red Blend 2015, okay? So I know it can be confusing because sometimes we switch vintages, and I had 1 vintage blend numbers, and I researched tonight so I can make sure to give you the absolute word on the 2015 red blend. We've got 83% Cabernet Sauvignon, 8% Merlot, 6% Petit Syrah, 1.8% Zin, and 1.5% Petit Verdot. You don't have to remember that. I'll put it on our Facebook page. But that is our blend. So primarily Cabernet Sauvignon, and we're kind of fleshing it out and adding complexity as we add these little bits of other varieties, right? Like Merlot, Petit Syrah, and that touch of Petit Verdot. So let's go ahead and swirl this one. Much darker fruit here. I'm getting a lot of dark fruit, okay? More of that kind of blackberry push. It smells darker, not quite as red, not as bright, right? And some really pretty herbs, I think, in there. I have a little bit of sage. Cabernet can actually have some like dried herbal notes too that are really enjoyable. I think small nuances of sage, in particular. Sometimes like a little red pepper, like a hot cracked pepper, and some of the oak. I'm picking up a little bit of vanilla, maybe like almost that s'more, right? That like vanilla marshmallow smell, with the chocolate and the oak, a little bit of the graham cracker toast. But really pretty wine. It smells delicious. I'm gonna go ahead and try this wine. So a big difference here in the intensity of the structure. There's more structure. This wine was actually in barrel for 20 months. So for 20 months, this wine was in French oak, approximately 50-60% French oak. I think this is right about 60% of French oak for 20 months. And our California red blend is about 12 months in a combination of French and American oak. So a difference in oak, we talked about that this morning on Facebook. If you guys were on Facebook Live this morning for Q&A. And also in the amount of time in oak. So there is actually tannin in oak. Oak can add structure and add weight to the wine the longer it's there. And the fact that this fruit is from Napa Valley, which is a very intense and very kind of world-renowned region for growing intense grapes, because we actually get cool fog and warm days. And that allows flavors to ripen slowly and mature on this really nice sort of timeline where we have flavors ripen as the grape and berry are ripening themselves. So the grape itself is a berry. And as those ripen along with the flavors, you get sort of optimal maturity. And that allows for a really intense expression of each varietal. So you just get a lot out of this wine. It's very complex. You could sit here and smell this wine for the rest of the night and get something new each time you swirled it. Katie has made her own scent station. All right. So for those of you who are familiar with the sensory station that we had at Crush and at our spring training tour, where you could go around and smell things and then pick them up, she has made one with chocolate, graham cracker, clove, and allspice to smell before drinking. She's so fancy. She says we're so fancy. That's awesome, Katie. That's a really great idea. So always available. You can always look on our tasting notes ahead of time or on the back of the bottle, and you'll find the tasting notes, and you could set something like that up for your own tasting parties, your own wine tastings. That's a really great idea. Glad you guys are enjoying that. So this is just a really pretty wine. So I'm gonna go ahead and sip it again and then try it with the popcorn. I definitely think this maple syrup sweetness and the fattiness from the bacon is really going to kind of make this tannin structure a little bit more filled out and robust, and maybe soften some of those edges. Let's see. Really good. I think I need a little more bacon bits. Adding more bacon bits. Coach Kim, is that acceptable? You're right here. You're on the top of my screen, so I got to call out Coach Kim every time. She's smiling, so that's good. All right, so a little more bacon, a little more wine. But that's kind of sometimes the fun thing about pairing, is discovering these new ways that flavors actually contribute to your overall experience with your wine. And having a really great pairing is just, you know, kind of this pinnacle of enjoying the wine so much too. Of course, your friends and your family and your environment and your circumstance and the cause behind the wine all plays in too, but this is pretty fun. Awesome. I like that little extra bacon. Kind of brought out more fruit and just added to the intensity and weight, overall weight of the wine. Awesome. So these are two really great red blends, really different, as you can see. We've talked about a few keywords tonight that I just wanted to review. We've got tannins, which are from the grape skins, seeds, and stems, and come from oak barrels. We talked a little bit about that. So tannins are really kind of where you get that structure. You get that sort of mouthful of really kind of that structure, that weight of the wine comes from those tannin molecules. And tannin is in a lot of things, including tea. When it's over the top or not quite ripe, you get sort of a bitterness from tannins, like you would if you sort of like chewed on a tea bag, which you might have done before. Like if it's so good or something, you know, you just like suck the juice right out of your tea. If you did that, you would notice a lot of tannin, a lot of bitterness. So you can see in the Napa Valley where wine, we're actually able to extract more tannin because it gets so ripe that it's almost a little bit more like bittersweet chocolate. It's really good. Sweetness, we talk about that a lot. Sweet really means wine with residual sugar, but we use that term pretty loosely when we're talking about wines. We talk about sweet and juicy, even though we're really talking about fruit sometimes. Dry wine. What is a dry wine? We talk about dryness, and sometimes we say dryness is a little bit more like the tannin, but dry is actually the absence of sugar. That's technically the term, and the word for dry is absent of sugar. But sometimes when we have those bitter kind of tannins, which I'm not experiencing in either of these wines, but you can have a Cabernet that's just really kind of drying. People usually find it astringent and drying around the sides of their mouth. And that's a different type of dry. That's a dry tannin, or astringency or bitterness. Barrel aging. We talked about barrel aging, this period of time after fermentation when wine's placed in small oak vessels to gain structure from that tannin and aromatic contributions from the oak. So those spices, that clove, that allspice, those aren't normally found in the grape itself. Those are found in the oak as part of the barrel aging process. And this barrel aging process also allows for small amounts of oxygen to work and develop the wine tannins to evolve. So you get softening over time. If you guys remember the sensory station, and I have the 3 types of rocks, there's very coarse rock, there's fine grained sand, and there's smooth stones. We basically get from that very coarse rock to those smooth stones in the barrel aging process. And so the bigger those tannins are, the longer we typically keep them in oak barrels. French oak is actually a specific type of oak grown in forests throughout central France. And we, of course, also have some American oak in our red blend from California, which is harvested here in the United States. And much of it is from the Appalachia forest, from Missouri. And it is a different species of oak, actually, with totally different characteristics a little bit more vanilla, a little bit more coconut-y in our white wines, like our California Chardonnay, and just has a really different structure to it. Napa Valley is the American viticultural area situated in Northern California. You know this region. I know you've seen it before or you've been there. The region spans from the San Francisco Bay up north to Calistoga and in between the Mayacamas and Vaca Mountain ranges. So this is that small little valley with a finite amount of land that grows very high quality grapes. And that's where we source our grapes for the Napa Valley Red Blend. And just to reiterate, our AVA, American Viticultural Area, this is the grape growing region that is distinguished by geographical features and boundaries, which have been recognized and defined by the federal government. So this is sort of like, when you say the wine is from Napa Valley, it's not because I just said it was somewhere around the Napa Valley. It's actually in this geographical region. So with that, I wanted to take a moment and share our cause partners. Our California Red Blend, we actually partner with Team Rubicon. A lot of people are familiar with Team Rubicon. They reunite veterans with a sense of purpose by leading and organizing natural disaster relief. And to date, probably at the end of the year, 2017, we have supported at One Hope 8,550 veterans, which is amazing. Team Rubicon was all over the place last year. They were at Hurricane Harvey. They were everywhere, and it was really cool to see them on the news and to have that connection with our wines. And then Chrysalis, for every case of our Napa Valley Red Blend, we provide 1 hour of job preparation class for homeless and low-income individuals. So without further ado, I wanted to end tonight's tasting by sharing a video from Chrysalis. To date, we've provided 574 hours of job preparation class. So thank you all for coming tonight and tasting with me and uncorking change here at One Hope. Our next tasting is going to be in April 17th. And we are going to celebrate Autism Awareness Month and to find out what can your Cabernet do for you. We'll be tasting Cabernet. So let me go ahead and get this video up for you. One second here.
I come in about 6:30 each morning. I see clients waiting, wrapped up in blankets. They say, I'm here to get a job.
When somebody walks in for the very first time, there's curiosity, sadness, and pain.
I was scared and nervous because I hadn't had a job in so many years. I walked in one day and that was the best thing that happened. I've been here ever since.
For some, it's really hard. People who haven't worked don't know what to say. They don't know what to do.
I thought my life was going to be a life prison sentence on the installment plan. 3 years here, 5 years here, 6 years here. I was tired of just living the way I was living, and I wanted a new way to live, and I had to find that way.
When a client comes to Chrysalis, we offer them a variety of services. They take classes, they have access to computers, workshops, but what really makes the difference is the one-on-one relationship between the client and their employment specialist.
They just need a chance. They need someone to believe in them, and they need help, and we're here to do that.
The role of an employment specialist is a really challenging one. You don't know what the barriers are going to be. It's homelessness, a criminal background, substance abuse, literacy,
The employment specialist's job is to find things to build off of.
We are not here to judge anybody. We are here to help people not be defined by their past.
I'm covered in tattoos, and so like usually the first impression is, oh, this guy's been in jail, he's probably trouble. The chrysalis, nobody judged. It was a really good feeling.
Everybody's here because they want to be here. They're trying to make a difference. They are so eager to learn and improve their situation.
The fact is that every client has marketable skills. Our job is to help interpret those skills and put them on a resume that can help them sell themselves to an employer.
I never had an email before. I didn't know what that was. Somebody came over and taught me the basics, and I started sending out emails with my resume attached to it.
I know how to do applications. I know how to do emails. I just be on the computer. I like that.
It can take a week, a month, a year. We're going to put in as much work as it takes until that client achieves their goal.
My employment specialist, Jimmy, always embraced me with his gentleness, his kindness. I know I'm getting all the tools I need here.
For our clients, it's about dignity. It's about a new start.
They showed me that no matter how many tattoos I got, no matter how many times I've been to prison, it doesn't matter. You can still get a job, and we're going to show you how.
When a client gets a job, they ring a bell in the lobby of our office. Everything stops. In that one moment, you see why we do what we do at Chrysalis.
They worked so hard. It's just such an accomplishment.
I learned how to go to an interview, and I learned how to get that job.
I've been told countless times, this place gave me life. This place gave me hope.
There's nothing better than having a job. That's a fact.
I feel like I'm succeeding in life. That's all I ever wanted, even when I didn't even know it.
They go from disbelief to believing in themselves, from holding their heads down to holding their heads up high.
I feel so good. I've been smiling ever since for 18 months. I've just been happy, full of joy.
70% of the clients that ring the success bell are still employed 6 months later. That's changing lives.
I volunteer at Chrysalis because I want to see people succeed in life.
I love being that agent of change.
For over 6 years now, I've been working steady, and for over 11 years, been clean and sober. Today, I live a good life. You know, today I don't go out and steal. Today, I have a family that loves me. I got a wife. I have a son. When I was sitting in a prison cell, I never imagined that life could be to the point it is now. It's great. I love it.
Anything's possible.
Pretty cool, huh, everybody? I love that. Thank you again for staying here and being with me tonight, Uncorking Change. Thank you for everything you guys do every day. I hear you guys, and I want